February 13th, 2010, Marja, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. The Taliban watched from door cracks and firing slits, patient as the dust, and when they showed themselves, even for a split second, a 50 cal turned that second into their last. Marines on the ground fought yard by yard to clear the town. Engineers cleared bomb after bomb from the roads throughout the town. Every step could split the earth wide open. And sitting high above it all, a small team of U.S. Marine snipers sat behind Barrett 50 cal rifles, watching and waiting for the enemy to show itself. And every time the enemy tried to make a move against the Marines on the ground, the snipers answered with overwhelming force. Marja wasn't just a place on a map, it was a maze of life and death carved into the earth. A grid of mud brick homes, pomegranate orchards, and irrigation canals fed by the Helmand River. A farming town packed full of civilians and built like a fortress. For years, the Taliban ran it like their own personal capital. Taxes, courts, checkpoints, drug labs hidden in farm compounds, and foreign fighters drifting in from Pakistan, Iran, and the tribal belts to train and fight. To the local farmers, it was their home. To the Marines, it was the center of gravity for the Helmand fight, and stepping into it felt like walking into someone else's house in the middle of the night, knowing that they're awake and waiting for you. Operation Mashtarak was a coalition force operation comprised primarily of U.S. Marines and Afghan troops. Hundreds of men moving in by air and ground, crossing canals in the dark, pushing deep into Taliban-held blocks at sunrise. But even with overwhelming numbers, nobody here felt strong yet. In Marja, strength didn't come from how many boots hit the ground, it came from who saw first, who fired first, and who stayed calm when the first gunshot snapped across the field and the entire district held its breath. Every footstep mattered. Engineers probed the soil for pressure plates, thin copper wires buried inches below the dust. The civilians of the town watched them closely from doorways, windows, and rooftops. But this wasn't just another Afghan village. Every trench line was a rifle pit, every canal bank a firing port, and every child's bicycle leaning on a wall could be rigged to blow. The Taliban was dug in deep here, and they were not going to give up their foothold on this town without a fight. Positioned just behind the advancing line on the high ground was a Marine scout sniper team, equipped with spotting scopes and Barrett M107 50 cal sniper rifles. Their job wasn't to be the first through the doorway, it was to make sure the Marines who were came home safe. By mid-morning, the air was already vibrating. A squad had pushed deeper toward a cluster of compounds, and machine gun fire barked in the distance. Short, probing bursts, then silence. That silence always came before the real contact. And in that still moment, the sniper team settled lower into their positions because they knew exactly what was coming. And because somewhere out there behind mud and shadows, someone else was settling in too, waiting for the Marines to walk just one step too far. Marja was about to test every Marine on the field, and the first shot of that day wasn't going to be theirs. They often say that battlefields speak before they scream. A door left half open, a motorcycle suddenly gone from a street that was full of them yesterday, children nowhere in sight. The Marines read these signs like a book, and they knew exactly what was waiting for them. But the patrol pushed forward, step by step, gun teams covering cross streets, engineers clearing the road ahead for IEDs, and the sniper team watched everything. Breath slow, rifles still, minds running hotter than the desert ground beneath them. You don't pull a 50 cal trigger for noise, you pull it for necessity, and necessity usually arrives without warning. The first burst came from a shadowy slit cut into a mud wall, the kind insurgents carved out with shovels at night, smooth enough to hide from a drone's eye, deadly enough to pin a squad in seconds. Rounds snapped over the Marines' helmets and chewed dust into their sleeves. The Marines took cover as fast as they can and began returning fire on the enemy's position. But while adrenaline and chaos ran rampant on the ground, the sniper team was slow and methodical. The snipers were able to see what others could not: a flicker of dust behind a wall, a rhythm to the fire, the way muzzle flash bent the haze above the reeds. They could see exactly where the enemy was hiding. The lead Barrett 50 cal shifted a few degrees. No rush, no panic. This was math and discipline. The Barrett's crack tore the battlefield apart, a single shot that made the earth flinch. The sniper couldn't see the Taliban fighter. All he could see was the muzzle flash of the PKM through the small hole in the mud wall. So we sent one round straight through the wall, ripping both the wall and the Taliban fighter hiding behind it apart. Immediately, the enemy PKM nest went silent. For the squad pinned in that alley, the world widened again. Breath came back to their lungs, and their shoulders lowered. One pull of a trigger had completely changed the battlefield for the men on the ground. In Marja, victory wasn't a hill or a banner. It was 10 seconds of quiet where there had just been chaos. And a 50 cal rifle had earned those seconds the way Marines always do, with patience, courage, and overwhelming firepower. The first shot had silenced the enemy, and the Marines on the ground were now moving forward again. But that silence wouldn't last long. A single PKM gunner is never the whole threat. Not here, not in Marja. Taliban fire teams fought in shadows and pairs, one gun to pin you, another to kill you when you try to move. The Marines knew it, and so did the snipers overhead. This was just getting started. The patrol pushed on towards the next compound. Engineers sweeped the ground for IEDs, riflemen watched the rooftops with white knuckles. Every step forward was filled with anxiety, unknowing if they were stepping on an IED or right in the line of fire of another PKM nest. Inside the dirt berm overlooking the town, the sniper team stayed focused, watching for any movement ahead of the Marines on the ground. And then in an instant, the silence was broken. An RPG streaked across the air, detonating just in front of the Marine patrol. The battlefield changed shape in a heartbeat. Now it wasn't a distant gunner behind mud. Now it was a cluster of enemy fighters, a coordinated kill zone. Multiple shooters, RPG teams, and they all had better angles on the Marines. If the Marines tried to fall back, they'd be shot out in the open. If they pushed forward, they'd run straight into another PKM nest. They were pinned down right where the enemy wanted them. The sniper team wasted no time finding their next targets, focusing first on the source of the RPG. It had come from a second-story window on a building overlooking the Marines' position. The Barrett 50 cal shifted to the left and locked in on the window. The sniper took a deep breath and squeezed the trigger. The 50 cal didn't hit the shooter, it hit the world he was hiding behind. Mud brick exploded. The firing port vanished in an instant, and with it, the man behind it. Once again, the 50 cal had completely annihilated the Taliban fighter and the mud wall he was hiding behind. The patrol surged, momentum clawed back. One sniper round opening a door no breaching charge could touch. No noise, no volume, just precision violence at the exact second it mattered. That's the thing about 50 cal snipers in Helmand. They don't win the fight, they open the opportunity for the Marines on the front to get it done. One shot at a time, one Marine saved at a time. The 50 cal sniper sent a few more rounds downrange, hitting a PKM nest and another RPG team. And the Marines on the ground handled the rest. And with that, the town went silent again. The Marines now had space to breathe and continue pushing forward to finish what they came to do, but this fight was far from over. A 50 cal sniper isn't a hammer, it's more like a scalpel. People hear the thunder and think of brute force, but behind every shot is a whole lot of math. On a flat range, you shoot what you can see, but out here, you shoot only what you can calculate. The bullet leaves the barrel like a promise, but the world between muzzle and target is alive and shifting. The wind doesn't blow, it boils across farm fields in Helmand, lifting, dropping, curling through alleyways like invisible current. But while the sniper's world shrank to inches and decimals, the enemy was adjusting too. Fighters in Marja learned to exploit the terrain. Crooked irrigation ditches running like trenches, compound corners were caked hard like clay armor. Pop-up firing points vanished the moment they barked. They weren't amateurs, they were farmers who became soldiers, and soldiers who knew the land like the back of their hands. The patrol continued to move forward, and then suddenly another burst of enemy fire. Another firing point, higher up this time. They could see just a sliver of muzzle flash in a 2-inch cutout in a wall up ahead. It was yet again another PKM nest placed strategically along the road to stop the patrol. But in the end, it would just be another perfect example of why the Barrett 50 cal was so invaluable on operations like this. The thick mud wall kept the Taliban PKM nest safe from the small arms fire coming from the Marines on the ground. But the Barrett 50 cal was going to chew through that mud wall like cardboard. Most of the Marines on the ground never even saw the target. They only saw the result. The thick mud wall split straight down the middle in an instant, and the sudden stop to the enemy's fire. And that's the role of the Marine sniper. Not glory, not noise, just precision in a place surrounded by chaos. There's no cheering after the 50 cal round. No victory yell, just a nod, a deep breath, and then another few meters earned towards the target compound. In Marja, progress wasn't miles, it was yards, won by quick decisions and bravery. The Marines continued to push through the town, clearing out PKM nests and Taliban fighters as they went. Killing in a war like this isn't just marksmanship, it's judgment. In Helmand, the Taliban didn't hide in mountains, they hid in other people's lives. Farmers in the field at sunrise were real farmers. Fathers in doorways watching strangers with rifles walk through their town. Children chasing chickens through alleys, too young to know which direction death was coming from. And somewhere inside that quiet, men with rifles and hate, waiting for a chance to fire. Some days, the sniper's hardest shot was the one he didn't take. Through a sniper optic, you don't just see targets. You see a grandmother hanging wet laundry while Marines stack on a nearby gate. You see a 10-year-old running across a roof with a kite, and your brain screams it's a rifle silhouette for a split second. You see people trying to live in a battlefield they never asked for, and between them, sometimes just feet away, a muzzle that is aimed at your brothers. The enemy knew the power of hesitation, and they used it, leaned on it, and weaponized the innocent. They'd hide their rifle barrels behind a curtain painted with flowers. Machine gunners would crouch behind grain sacks where children had been playing just an hour earlier. It wasn't just about seeing the shot, it was about knowing the right target, the right moment, and the right time to take the shot. Hesitation wasn't a weakness the Marines had to get over, it was a necessity they had to use. They had to second guess every shot and be certain of what their crosshair was resting on, because once a 50 cal round leaves the barrel, there's no going back. You have to live with whatever damage that bullet does. The easiest thing to do in Helmand Province was to shoot first, but the hardest thing, the thing only the disciplined could do, was to wait for the right moment, to let danger live one more heartbeat so an innocent didn't die in its place. This is what people who never wore the uniform don't understand. Snipers don't take life lightly, they protect it by ending only what they have to. War doesn't just tally bodies, it tallies souls, and long after Marja faded from maps and headlines, there are Marines who still see that place when they close their eyes, still hear that first burst of gunfire, and still feel the weight of every shot they took. After 3 weeks of fighting, clearing IEDs, and searching compounds, Marja was finally cleared of all Taliban fighters by the US Marines and the Afghan troops on the ground. And none of that would have been possible without the Barrett 50 cal sniper rifle and the men behind it. In Helmand, battles didn't end with victory shouts or waving flags. They ended with quiet streets and men who never asked to be heroes, walking off another field where peace had to be paid for, one hard decision at a time. Most people will never know their names, or the dirt they crawled through, or the decisions they carried home on their shoulders. They'll never hear the wind call through the reeds right before the world breaks open. Never feel the weight of holding your fire because a life you didn't come to take stepped into your sights. This wasn't a story about a rifle, it was a story about restraint, courage, and patience, about Marines who didn't fight for glory, they fought for the man next to them, and for the chance that people who lived here could one day walk these fields without fear. The Barrett 50 cal spoke only when it had to, and when it did, it saved lives. But true strength wasn't in the trigger, it was in the discipline to use it only when it mattered most. This video is in honor of all Marines who fought in Helmand Province, Afghanistan.